Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video we're taking a look at a newly buffed Pokemon in the Great League with such a monster attack stat that it can even win CMP over Morpeko. These battles were submitted to the channel by a member of the community, Kale Special, so many thanks for the battle submission. Now Roserade got the new move Poison Sting, which gives it faster energy generation than it used to have. So the question will be, is this lightning fast new pacing enough to let Roserade survive in this new meta? So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at this team in action. Roserade off to a bit of a tough start in the first match leading into Emolga. Emolga is a core breaker for the Roserade plus water core. Opponent farms up to the acrobatics. We will see the shield from the Roserade, and unfortunately the shield comes through on a discharge bait. Roserade is even able to outpace discharge baits. That's how fast this thing gets the charge attacks. Opponent is going to fire off another move, and Roserade with an early double shield, this time getting the shield call right. Roserade farming up to 100 energy, the opponent now in a difficult position where they don't have enough shields to protect Emolga. They're going to switch out into Primeape. Primeape immediately met with a Weather Ball, and that's going to be no shielded. Roserade is going to farm up, playing to the CMP tie, because if it can CMP tie Morpeko, it can absolutely CMP tie Primeape. Primeape is going to be stuck throwing the Rage Fist. Rage Fist is going to KO, and now in comes Lapras. Lapras looking for a farm down. Opponent settles for a Rage Fist. This is not enough for a close combat. It's only 4 Karate Chops. If they made it to the close combat, then there could have been the potential for a cool catch onto Dusknoir. Unfortunately, there is a discharge loaded, and it picks up the KO onto Lapras. In the back is Togetic, and I think this is an endgame the Shadow Dusknoir can win. Togetic is a Pokemon that did receive multiple buffs, but I just don't think Dazzling Gleam KOs here. Opponent is going to fire off the Dazzling Gleam, and Dusknoir survives, hanging on, making it to another Shadow Punch. This Shadow Punch is going to connect. Down goes Togetic. Emolga gets farmed down as well, and despite a core breaker lead in game number 1, the team will get the win. Picking up a very tough lead in the next match, leading into a Mud Slap Claydol. Neutral Mud Slaps are shredding through Roserade. This thing is very frail. We're going to see a Weather Ball bait grabbing a shield. In comes Dusknoir, and Dusknoir will actually have energy thrown on it by the Claydol. Claydol is going to debuff with a Rock Tomb, and out comes Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff, if the opponent didn't chip and dip there, Wigglytuff, I believe, actually loses the zeros to Dusknoir because 2 Dynamic Punches without a debuff actually KO. Roserade hits the field. These charms, even though they're resisted, definitely do not look it. Roserade gonna look to try and get a massive amount of energy before finally picking up the KO with Weather Ball Fire. Weather Ball Fire is going to pick up the knockout. Will we see the return of Claydol? No, instead it's going to be Cradily. No baits here, going straight for the Leaf Storm. It connects. Shadow Cradily getting absolutely shredded. Oh my goodness. It's going to be a Lapras versus Claydol endgame. Claydol did have a bit of residual energy. Lapras just needs to get to the double Sparkling Aria, and it should be able to barely outpace here. Lapras with the outpace, incredibly clutch. No second Rock Tomb for that Claydol. They're getting KO'd, and the Shadow Cradily just doesn't have enough HP left after taking that Leaf Storm. Roserade, tough lead leading into Talonflame. We're going to see a safe switch into Dusknoir. This Dusknoir is actually running Astonish. Astonish going to have a lot slower pacing than Hex, but it does have more fast move pressure. Personally, when I tried it, I did really enjoy the pacing on Hex, but it's really going to depend based on each individual battler and their particular playstyle. Dusknoir is at a second Shadow Punch, but unfortunately will not make a third here, as it's going to be 9 turns away, and 10 turns of Incinerate will pick up the KO. Lapras snipes with a Psywave. The Psywave 1-turn move goes first. They lose so much energy. In comes Jellicent. Roserade hits the field, and in the back is Serperior. Serperior immediately met with the Weather Ball. That's going to deal massive damage. Serperior going for an Aerial Ace, and this will hit. Oh, they don't have Aerial Ace. They have Leaf Tornado, but thank goodness no debuff comes through. The Roserade's attack stats still at full power, and now goodbye Serperior. All that's left is the Jellicent and this Poison Sting pacing, getting to this Leaf Storm. That's going to be a one-hit KO. Didn't even get the excellent, but it did not matter. Moving into the next match, great lead for Roserade as it leads into Superior. Superior staying in as well. Roserade farming up. There's a catch attempt by the opponent onto a Shadow Drapion. Roserade banks a ton of energy, and Lapras hits the field. Lapras going to tank a crunch. No debuff comes through, even though, of course, Psywave is resisted here. Psywaves do 2 damage per Psywave to Shadow Drapion, so even though it's resisted, honestly, the fast moves do add up quite a bit. The opponent has farmed up a ton of energy. Lapras hoping to survive the crunch, but unable to do so. Roserade going to play to the CMP tie, denying the opponent's energy unless they give up a shield first. They are going to let it go. In comes Superior, but Superior is so far behind in terms of energy. Superior going to fire off the Aerial Ace, but Roserade now going to farm to 100 energy. And what is Superior going to do now? Weather Ball connects. Superior barely hanging on, but unfortunately, the Aerial Ace that was intended for the Roserade just got caught. In the back is Greninja, and this is not what you're hoping to see if you have a Dust Noir. At this point, you kind of just have to throw away the Dust Noir. Night Slash, thankfully no boost, and now Roserade has a lot of energy and is going to go for a Weather Ball bait and gets the shield from the opponent. Roserade, a second bait. This may be the advantage that's needed. Can we see a double shield? Yes, we can. The opponent at the back-to-back Night Slashes, but Roserade does win the CMP tie here. And that means this game will end in victory. Leaf Storm probably KOs 3 Greninjas, and that's a good game. Picking up a great lead in the next match, Roserade into Azumarill, and oh my goodness, the Azumarill is not switching out. Roserade, no baits here, going straight for the Leaf Storm. Do they respect it? They do not, and that is a clean one-hit KO. Opponent now sending in a Skarmory. Skarmory, and this is an Air Slash Skarmory as well. I saw the typing, I was expecting Corviknight, but no. Skarmory now to be met with Lapras. And our battler did rebank a ton of energy on the Roserade before switching out. So if Roserade needs to nuke something endgame, it absolutely can. Sparkling Aria number 1 able to connect. Lapras, if it wants this energy, is going to have to shield. Lapras deciding to let it go, and instead going to bring back in the Roserade. Roserade firing off the Weather Ball. This will inflict serious damage onto the Skarmory. Picking up the KO in the back is Unova Stunfisk. So the opponent pretty weak to grass if the grass type is not aligned onto that Skarmory. We are going to see a shield from the Shadow Dust Noir, and Dust Noir is going to continue to spam out moves. Shadow Punch number 1 is going to be shielded. Opponent giving an unnecessary free turn there, and Dust Noir will absolutely take the free energy. Dust Noir now going for the harder hitting move, the Dynamic Punch into the Stunfisk, and Stunfisk is going to shield. The issue is the Roserade is very, very low, but I don't think one move is going to knock out the Dust Noir. Mud Bomb gets Dust Noir low, but not low enough. Dust Noir is going to make it to the Shadow Punch. Shadow Punch KOs the Stunfisk, and that game will end in a win. Roserade into Blastoise. Opponent switching out into Venusaur and Trainer. This is not a response to a Roserade. Roserade Weather Ball, just like that, 3/4 of Venusaur's health gone in a split second. Can Roserade even potentially poison this thing down here? It's ambitious, but I think it can be done, and oh my goodness, Roserade now has way too much energy. In comes Talonflame. We see an immediate switch out. Roserade does not want anything to do with Talonflame, and the final Protect shield comes up, and now the opponent is at a 2-0 shield advantage. Blastoise hits the field. We're going to see the Shadow Punch fired at the Blastoise. That does some pretty solid damage. And this actually ends up being a CMP tie. I didn't see a rollout sneak. So this will be a CMP tie, and that's quite nice because that means the opponent does not get to overfarm anymore. Instead, they just get to take the knockout. Roserade has a ton of energy, but unfortunately that energy does not go very far against the Talonflame. Lapras farming up quite a bit, and Blastoise, they're not building up to the Skull Bash, so I guess they're on Ice Beam. In comes the Talonflame, and Talonflame should be on their 2 cycle now, so they're very close to the fly. Sparkling Aria is going to be shielded. There's the switch. Oh my goodness. Is this the CMP sack swap? It's a Leaf Storm. It KO. Oh no, it doesn't KO. 1 HP on the Talonflame, but that was a devastating CMP sack swap. Wow, beautiful gameplay here from our battler. I was shocked that that did that much damage. That is double resisted damage into a Talonflame, and it's still almost KO'd. Picking up a pretty bad lead in the next match, Roserade into Diggersby. Diggersby just has a pretty big pacing advantage here, so unless Roserade is able to get some successful baits, things are going to get very tricky very quickly. Roserade farming up a ton of energy. We will see the first bait come through. Will Diggersby respect it? Yes, they will. And now we see a switch out and a catch onto Lapras. And I feel like that's what you have to do a lot of the time with Roserade, is Roserade, as the opponent switches in a Toxapex, they are very lucky this Lapras is not on Skull Bash. As a lot of Laprases are on Skull Bash, and with Skull Bash, then they absolutely destroy Toxapex. But Toxapex respects the Skull Bash because the Lapras farmed up to it. Lapras now very happy to take that Sludge Wave and leave with a parting gift of one final Sparkling Aria. Sparkling Aria is going to connect, and now Shadow Dusknoir hits the field. Shadow Dusknoir is extremely okay with taking a Brine. Brine is a pretty poor move, but honestly, that works out because you don't really want a Pokemon as bulky as Toxapex to have an extremely overpowered bait move. Azumarill is the final Pokemon, and now Shadow Dusknoir is going to try and get as much damage as possible. The opponent throws energy, Dusknoir is going to let it go, and now in comes Roserade. Roserade farming up close to 100, firing off the Leaf Storm. This will easily pick up the knockout. Roserade now met with Diggersby switching out to reset the debuff. Roserade re-hits the field, but now its attack stat is back to normal. That means Leaf Storm is going to pick up the one-hit KO. In comes Toxapex. Toxapex does not get the farm down. The Roserade Rampage. This thing is very difficult to use. If it's down energy, it can feel like a liability, but when played skillfully, my goodness, this thing is fun. Tough lead in the next match, leading into a Shadow Sableye. We're going to see a nice switch out and a catch onto Lapras. Lapras answered with a Ferrothorn, and my goodness, Lapras in a very tough spot here. Ice Beam will at least hit for neutral, but Ferrothorn can very comfortably farm up to 100. They could have done even one more Bullet Seed, but they are going to pick up the knockout with the Power Whip. Roserade hits the field. Roserade farming up, going to fire off this Weather Ball. Weather Ball, double super effective, very comfortably picking up the knockout. You really have to hope the opponent brings back in the Sableye, and they do. Roserade now got a full send. No baiting this time. The Leaf Storm, it connects. The opponent tries to call the bait. Roserade rebanks the Leaf Storm, sends out Dusknoir, and we know Dusknoir is going to do great due to the fact that with its Ghost typing, it is going to be resisting the Poison Jabs. So Dusknoir in a great position. Dusknoir decides to shield 1. Realistically, it can tank a Brine and never get farmed down, so it's still going to be in a pretty nice position, but if you have 2 shields, you may as well get the opportunity to use them. The opponent now just running out of options. The one thing they can shield is the fast moves from the Dusknoir. Shadow Punch is going to be shielded, but I see the vision. Our battler wants to land that Leaf Storm, firing off another Shadow Punch. There's the shield, and there is the combo play. You don't bank a move for no reason. This is massive overkill, knocking out Toxapex and taking the win. We've got a blast from the past in the next match. I have not seen Altaria in ages, but here it is, and this is a problem for Roserade. Roserade looking to farm up a ton of energy, but look at the difference in health. Roserade already so low. In comes Lapras. This is one situation where the Ice Beam might be a bit of a nasty surprise for the opponent. Lapras going straight for it. Ice Beam, no, the opponent is going to respect it, and then they're going to pivot out into Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn farming up quite a bit of energy. Lapras is going to get some nice damage with the Ice Beam. Switch Clock not yet available, so unfortunately for Lapras, it is just going to get KO'd here. The opponent is, however, going to be met with a Roserade that has a ton of loaded energy. Roserade, 1 Poison Sting and the move, and Weather Wall Fire, double super effective, very easily picks up the knockout. In comes Altaria, quick switch to the Dusknoir, as the opponent is going to launch their Sky Attack, but Dusknoir is probably going to need the health, so we will see a shield. In comes Swampert, and this is going to be a very tough game to win. Swampert Hydro Cannon, massive damage, Dusknoir building up to the Shadow Punch, going for a bait. I think if the opponent just saves the shield for Altaria, they're probably in a pretty decent spot. Dusknoir gets the farm down. Altaria, oh, that's massive. The Dusknoir able to make one final Shadow Punch, getting the shield, and grabbing that shield now means that I think Roserade can close out this game. Weather Ball is going to land. Roserade, oh no, it's double resisted. We saw it almost KO a Talonflame. Now it's KOing Altaria. Grass move into the Dragon Flyer, and that's a good game. Hopping into the final match, Roserade into a Shadow Blastoise, and that's a great start with a savage Hydro Cannon catch onto the Lapras. Blastoise staying in this matchup, and they're actually just throwing a Hydro Cannon. This is not enough for a Skull Bash. So for Lapras, Lapras is very happy at the turn of events. Wigglytuff hits the field. Lapras would love to get to a second Sparkling Aria here, potentially force a shield. It's going to be close, and Lapras gets there. Precision in charge attack timing, and it pays off as Wigglytuff takes quite a bit of damage. Roserade back onto the field, but it's going to be immediately met with a Swift, and that is going to grab a shield. Roserade now farming up, again, close to 100 energy, going for an undercharge. Roserade would love to leave with more stored energy. Opponent is going to switch back into the Blastoise. Blastoise immediately met with the Leaf Storm. Leaf Storm is going to be shielded, but Roserade had too much energy, winning the CMP tie over the Blastoise. This Leaf Storm, it's -2. It still knocks out, and the opponent in the back, they're going to have a Diggersby. Now, this is a matchup where Dusknoir is favored because, I mean, neither Pokemon can do any fast move damage to each other. It's both going to be double resisted, but Dusknoir, with that Shadow Dynamic Punch, is going to inflict massive damage onto the Diggersby. Diggersby firing off a Scorching Sands, or they could potentially go for a Fire Punch here. They are going to go for the Fire Punch, and now great turn weight there, not letting the opponent catch. Dynamic Punch picks up the KO. Wigglytuff gets astonished down. That's what Wigglytuff deserves, and that is a good game. All in all, these are some very entertaining battles, so big thank you to the battler for sending them in. Roserade, it's a Pokemon that is very high risk, high reward. With how frail it is, in a lot of circumstances, if there's even medium fast move pressure, it can get completely flattened. And if it's down energy even once, then things can get very, very difficult for it. And that's why if you do decide to use Roserade, you kind of have to structure a team composition and a strategy entirely around trying to make Roserade work. In this instance, there was a lot of moves being caught onto Lapras to help Roserade reposition, try to overfarm as much as possible, because this is a Pokemon that it has a pretty similar bulk to Morpeko, obviously a bit higher attack than Morpeko, but the big thing is Morpeko is a lot spammier. Aura Wheel every 10 turns, and granted the pacing is better with Poison Sting than it ever was with Poison Jab or Bullet Seed, but it's still slower than Morpeko. So overall, it's something where I don't think it's consistent enough to see meta play. I think it's a very fun, like, off-meta / spicy Pokemon that you can run and have some very fun sets with, but due to that extreme lack of bulk, I think consistency is going to be its biggest issue, unless you're as precise with your gameplay as our submitter was here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoy watching content like this, please do consider leaving a like on the video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our channel members here on YouTube. The support you guys provide is genuinely so appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.